Welcome, friends, to Breakfast in the Ruins, a Michael Moorcock-flavoured podcast. On this show, Andy Darby is back to join me in an exploration of Mike's venture into sword and planet fiction, or is that planetary romance? Either way, we're looking at the City of the Beast, aka Warriors of Mars. The best way to sum up the background to Mike's Mars trilogy is probably just to read his introduction from the New English Library Omnibus from 1986. Well, maybe not all of it, because it is rather long, but I'll read a few bits. Mike wrote this in 1980. Mike is talking about his early history of reading, but then he says, I must have been 9 before I found one of my father's old books, a battered copy of The Son of Tarzan by Edgar Rice Burroughs. A little earlier, the Mowgli stories of Kipling had inspired me so much that I was eventually asked to leave my school because I had convinced the other children that I'd actually been brought up in the Indian jungle by wolves and was forced to spend a fair amount of time proving my skills of jungle craft during the day while inventing new stories for them at night. In my last term, I remember that I lost a certain amount of credibility, also, when I became stuck up a large oak tree for the best part of 3 hours and had to be helped down by our housemaster. But Mowgli didn't have a patch on Tarzan once I'd discovered him, and I read every book I could find at the local lending library, eventually discovering the mastermind of Mars and becoming hooked on the John Carter stories. For several years, Edgar Rice Burroughs was my greatest literary hero. I started an Edgar Rice Burroughs magazine called Burroughsania, which I suppose I could now say was a reference to Burroughs Land, but was actually a misspelling of Burroughsiana. As I grew older, my enthusiasm for popular fantasy widened. I never enjoyed the more respectable kinds of science fiction, but I was a great collector of planet stories and startling stories for a while, and there was an infatuation for Conan too. Gradually, my full-blooded worship of Burroughs began to fade, and other heroes, Huxley, Powys, Peake, Conrad, Fairbank, took his place, and then, ironically, I began to write articles on Edgar Rice Burroughs' characters for a magazine called Tarzan Adventures. Soon after, I was asked to write a series of fantasy stories for the same magazine. My first series character was invented at the age of 15, Sojourn the Swordsman, whose adventures much resembled those of a typical Burroughs hero on another planet. Later, when I became editor of Tarzan Adventures, I began to reduce the number of Tarzan comic pages and increase the range of the text material, which also meant raised setting costs, a larger budget, and an irate publisher who eventually caught on to what I was doing. I left Tarzan Adventures under a cloud, and my next job was as an editor on Sexton Blake Library. Blake was the longest-running detective hero in popular fiction. He began in the 1880s, and is still going, with films, TV series, comic strips, as well as thousands of book-length pulps devoted to his adventures. In 1964, after the first Elric book had been published, I was asked to write a fantasy series by the publisher of New Worlds, which, by that time, I was editing. I liked the idea of producing a series absolutely in the Burroughs tradition. It seemed a good way of saying thanks to Burroughs and enjoying myself at the same time, but by this time I was editing a radically different kind of magazine, which was busily trying to free imaginative fiction of the genre associations which were, to my mind, hampering some of the best writers from producing their best work. And it seemed to me, just then, that it wasn't a good idea to be talking about the breaking down of genre conventions whilst producing a trilogy of romances which exemplified, even exalted, those conventions. I wasn't ashamed of the books. I believe in standing by everything I write whilst retaining a fairly cool opinion of its merits or demerits. But at that moment it didn't seem a particularly good idea to have my name attached to what were escapist books to be read primarily by teenagers. So I gave the publisher a choice of titles and a combination of names, and eventually there appeared, under the unlikely name of Edward Powys Bradbury, the books originally published as Warriors of Mars, Blades of Mars, and Barbarians of Mars. To be honest, producing Mr. Bradbury's trilogy wasn't a lot like work. I enjoyed it enormously. It was a kind of holiday for me in which I paid tribute to my old hero, Burroughs, though in the final volume I had the added fun of trying to make my protagonist actually behave according to the code John Carter was always talking about and rarely seemed capable of sticking to. He hated killing, he said, but he managed to get through a score or two of assorted antagonists per volume. I wrote the whole series in just over a week, and tired but happy, expected them to come and go, and be forgotten about almost as soon as they were published. Ironically, they have remained in print, under new titles and with my own name on them ever since. With most new editions of my books, I have taken the opportunity to revise them, sometimes quite radically, but with the Mars trilogy, I somehow feel they should appear as they were written. Flaws, internal jokes, enthusiasm, respect for genre conventions, and all, so you'll find hardly a word changed here. Michael Moorcock, Ladbroke Grove, London, August 1980. So, barely a word changed. In other words, there probably is a little bit of revision. And I must say, at some point in the future, I'll have to revisit this and also the Golanx collection from probably 10, 12 years ago, whenever it was, entitled Cain of Old Mars, just to see if there are any more additions or changes that he's made in the 35 years, 45 years, I'm miscounting, since he wrote that introduction to the NEL edition omnibus. Join us. Try not to be catapulted into a different world, but join Andy Darby and me as we take a look at the City of the Beast. Welcome back, Andy, after a false start last week where the technical gremlins were fucking with my broadband for some reason.
Evil broadband monkeys.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably coming from afar, coming from a parallel Earth or a strange planet, weird teleport signals fucking with our technology. Halfway through this, we might get catapulted to a strange world and have to run around wearing only thongs.
Well,
and
were they
battle
even
big
thongs?
four-armed ape men or something. Yeah, because what on earth are we doing today, Andy? Well, we're doing some Sword and Planet action, aren't we?
We are indeed.
But you know what? Before we get to that, and our feelings around Michael Moorcock's City of the Beast, which slight spoiler, I was a bit disappointed with.
Oh man, I was actually sort of slightly gutted. I was
Right, before we get to that, what have you been up to and what are you working on?
Right. I've written a little novella which is a freebie to anyone who subscribes to my book website, and that's called The Stone Beneath, and that's a sort of it's a sort of a bit of a prequel almost to Blade in the Angel's Shadow, but it only features our big man Peter Hertgers, the Dutch lunatic, in his early days as a Lansket and battling strange forces. I needed to write a bit of a teaser to try and get people to subscribe to the actual website, and so this is a little sort of freebie novella that you can get hold of, and it's it's him in his very early days, and it's almost slightly, I think, in a sort of a Solomon Kane style weird tale rather than being normal straightforward sword and sorcery. So.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. I'll look forward to reading that. And where's my Crowfeeder collected print edition?
Oh, man. I have got, I think, one episode left to publish online, and then the whole lot will be done. And I'm going to collate it all together. It's going to go in a collection of short stories, which I need to do some more bits and pieces to go in there. But yeah, hopefully it won't be too long doing that.
Cool. Yeah, I look forward to reading that as well. Because, you know me, I've said it before, I'm much better with printed paper than I am with screen readers.
Yeah.
So very much look forward to that. Cool. So we're going to do some Sword and Planet. Sword and Planet, planetary romance. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, it's sort of Mills and Boons with ray guns in it, really. It's
yeah. There's definitely a strong element of that, isn't there? And we'll certainly get to it, but Moorcock's protagonist's habits of falling in love with the first woman who looks at them sideways and speaks to them nicely.
Oh no!
Definitely continues in this. Just so happens she's butt naked as well.
Yeah, just helps, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. Now you said this was the first Moorcock book you ever read as well, right?
I know it was. Yeah. The whole reason I got into Michael Moorcock was the cover of this book.
Yeah.
And it's the New English Library version with the big blue dude sitting on the back of some, that's the puppy, sitting on the back of some strange beast with a human head, and some naked guy chucking a javelin at him. And this was a free poster in a sci-fi magazine when I was like 13 years old, and I saw this in the newsagent and thought, man, that's awesome. So that poster was on my bedroom wall for most of my teenage years while I was growing up.
Nice.
And of course then I had to find out what the story of this was, so I bought the book, and you know, I'd been reading sort of like Robert E. Howard stuff and all that sort of thing up until this point,
Hmm.
plus a few other bits and pieces chucked in. So this was my
Yeah.
introduction to Michael Moorcock, and I hadn't read any Sword and Planet stuff before, so that was, you know, an introduction to that sort of genre as well at that point. And I've only actually just got this book with this cover because I
Yeah.
couldn't find it anywhere in the UK, and I bought it on eBay about 3 weeks ago so I could read it for this podcast.
Well, this is the edition I got off Pops. I can't say, unfortunately, it's the exact copy I got
Right.
off Pops back in the day, but I remember seeing this on Pops' coffee table, and I was like, ooh, because this cover, funnily enough, this huge blue warrior aboard the strange four-legged steed with it's kind of got human hands, fists at the front,
Yeah.
and the human-like head or ape-like head, and the naked dude. The naked dude has got a thong on, so he's not entirely naked. But other than the fact that he's not entirely naked, this is probably one of the most literal translation book covers to any Moorcock book ever, because this scene takes place pretty much as depicted in this picture, fairly early on in the book.
Yeah.
You know, other than the fact that this guy's got a thong on, and Kane is naked when he gets to Mars. I would have loved to have had this poster on my wall. I think it's a fucking brilliant cover. Who was the artist? There's no attribution
No,
on
there
this New
isn't.
English Library cover. Anyway, answers on a postcard, please. Anybody who's got the early 70s edition of City of the Beast in the New English Library edition with a huge blue warrior aboard the mount and the dude with a spear. Answers on a postcard if you know the artist is. It's an interesting book. The reason why this is not the copy I had that Pops gave me is because me and Phil were going to cover this about 3 years ago.
Right.
And the copy I had disintegrated when I was trying to read it. And then I got hold of a Paizo Planet Stories edition, and the cover fell off, and the glue binding was terrible, and that fell to pieces as well. So I just took it as a sign that it wasn't to be at the time. So we waited a while. But I've also got the NEL Collected Omnibus, which is
yeah. I quite like the cover of that actually.
yeah. It's not quite as lore accurate, I don't think, because most people are wearing clothes. But the big ape man steeds are pretty accurate. It's quite a nice tidy edition, that as well. And it has got an introduction by Mike, which was written in about 1980, where he talks a little bit about how he wrote it, about the fact that one of the first things he did was, when he became an aspiring writer as a teenager, was to do the Burrazania fanzine, which he edited for quite some time before actually getting a proper job editing Tarzan Monthly for the Tarzan property.
Right.
But I've actually got a photocopied copy of Burrazania, the Christmas issue, which is Volume 1, Issue number 9, which I got off Sebastian Weetabix, as well as a lot of other very cool stuff like copies of the Times Centre Times and other bits and pieces. So I think what I'll do over the next week or so after we've done this, and after this has gone out, I'll have a flick through this and see what's in it and do a special Weetabix file on the Burrazania Christmas issue from, what year is this? December 1956.
Blimey.
Blimey.
That'd be good.
Yeah, so what have we got in here? We've got a number of articles on Pellucidar by a chap called Arthur Thompson. Lots of things by Moorcock about things like weird tales. Of course, he's the editor, so there's the editorial in there. There's a letters page, which is quite interesting, from people who were buying this and getting it posted to them by Mike Sixpence. Price £6 every month. Published and produced by M.J. Moorcock at 36 Semley Road, Norbury, Southwest 16. Little bit of history there.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I've just found out who the cover artist is. I've just Googled it quick, and it's a guy called Gino de Achille.
I've heard that name before.
I couldn't tell you where, but yes, it does ring a bell.
Right, I'm going to have to look into him then. I wonder if he did the Masters of the Pit cover and other bits of business. Because, of course, the other thing about City of the Beast is it's got a different title in America, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think this edition actually has the different... Oh, no, in this edition it's City of the Beast.
It was Warriors of Mars, wasn't it, on the original?
So Warriors of Mars, Lord of the Spiders was also published as Blades of Mars, and Masters of the Pit was also published as Barbarians of Mars. So this omnibus edition here from 1986 is just called Warrior of Mars. I suppose that might have made it leap off the shelves a little bit more if people were Edgar Rice Burroughs fans, because of course Sword and Planet Fiction, as we know it, probably had lots more antecedents as well, but we really largely know it for Edgar Rice Burroughs' books, starting with Princess of Mars in 1911. Robert E. Howard did his take on it with Almeric in 1939, a short serial, which I've still not read. You know, I think some people will hop up because they've read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Volume 2. Well, what about C.S. Lewis's Out of the Silent Planet stories? And then, of course, there was Lester Edwin Arnold's Gulliver Jones story from 1905. Well, that's pretty obscure these days. I think most people who were aware of that would have no fucking idea that that even existed if they hadn't read Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Volume 2, which I don't know if you've read that.
No.
So League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is crazy superstar mashup of Victorian Penny Dreadful characters.
Yes.
All teaming up to fight Fu Manchu. And it's artwork by Kevin O'Neill, absolutely terrific. Well, Volume 2 is similar, but also the invasion from Mars from H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds takes place
at
the same time. And so if you've not read them, Andy, well worth a look if you don't like reading a comic from time to time.
No, I like a bit of a comic.
Because not only does Kevin O'Neill do great work with the Martians and the War Machines, but there are some absolutely staggeringly amazing scenes in there. Anybody who's read it will have the scene where the traitorous Invisible Man gets his comeuppance at the hands of Mr. Hyde. And before Mr. Hyde goes off to confront a war machine on one of the bridges over the River Thames. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. But there's a framing chapter at the very, very beginning which has the occupants of Mars coming together to do their war planning to take on the war machines on Mars and the I forget what they call the actual race, but it's anyway. It's got John Carter's there, Gulliver Jones is there from Lester Edwin Arnold's Gulliver, The Adventures of Gulliver Jones, I think it was called, and it references Kane's Old Mars, because Kane's Old Mars was 2,000 years before. So Alan Moore draws in all of these like Martian characters. It has the Martian races from the C.S. Lewis stories involved in it. Funnily enough, the Ian Edgington and Disraeli Scarlet Traces graphic novels or comic stories that were in 2000 AD that you can now get as collections, they did something similar where they have one of the characters encounter a huge gallery of astronomical artworks, and on the wall you have Mars, and it has the occupants of Mars before the H.G. Wells Martians arrived and wiped them all out. And you have the four-armed green Martians from the John Carter stories. You have the Martians from the C.S. Lewis stories. And you have a depiction of Earth, and it has the Sea Devils and the Silurians from Doctor Who.
Oh, no.
Indicated above it. So it's like another crazy mashup. They did a similar thing to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where they drew on lots and lots of different influences, to the point where over the course of those stories, which take place, I think there's like a 20-year time jump every time. The first one, which is the first one is the adaptation of War of the Worlds. The second one, or the first volume of Scarlet Traces, has Peachy and who was the other character? It was Michael Caine's character in The Man Who Would Be King.
Yes. I can't remember his name, but I know you mean.
Those characters are in it anyway, and later on, when it gets to the 60s, it's got a young, or the 70s, it's got a young Lieutenant Skellen, who is Lewis's character from Who Dares Wins.
Yeah,
just in a really, really tiny part. It's absolutely fantastic. Anyway, yes, but so there's lots and lots of these stories. Some of them are obscure, but really, we know of these stories largely through Edgar Rice Burroughs' Mars stories. Also, he did his Venus stories, none of which I've read, by the way. I've read quite a few of the Mars stories over the years. I think you said you were going to read Princess of Mars because of our delay, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I finished it, and I've just started on Warlord of Mars because I thought, why not? Just tripped over into it. But Yeah, Princess of Mars, it's much better written than the Moorcock ones. I
Mm.
think simply because Edgar Rice Burroughs is a different type of storyteller who
Mm.
weaves a bigger narrative rather
Yeah.
than the short, sharp shocks that Moorcock does in his thinner books. It's also of an era because obviously when he was around at the end of the Victorian era,
Yeah.
and so there's that whole mentality in there. I mean, John Carter is a far more believable hero,
Mm.
being a Civil War veteran and making his way in the Old West and all this sort of stuff, an Indian fighter and all this sort of
Yeah.
malarkey. So he sounds like a character who could actually look after himself. And he's also got that sort of southern gentleman sort of like etiquette about him, which fits in with the way he's portrayed, with the way he deals with the Martians and with the Princess of Mars and all this sort of stuff. So it's a very much more developed story.
Mm.
And so I mean, having read it now, I can see exactly where Mike Moorcock was getting his influences from.
Yeah.
And and having read that now, I think the Moorcock stuff is very much it's like fan fiction, yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. It is
And
very much.
yeah, it's got some good ideas in there, but I think they're lacking because of the length of the story.
Well, he did say that he wrote all three in a week.
Right, that explains a lot. Yeah,
Which
yeah,
explains quite a lot, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah.
So he's writing this around about the time that he's in his early days of editing New Worlds. So whilst he's pushing and writing and promoting really radical, interesting, genre-busting, progressive, and even transgressive science fiction and
Mm,
fantasy, he's also taking a moment to step back and just knock out in a week 3 pastiches,
yeah,
really,
yeah,
of the John Carter stories. And I think it does show. They do creak a little bit,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. They
And
do.
even compared to some books that he was writing around about the same time, the last episode out was on the ice schooner, and some of his world building in that is absolutely terrific.
Yeah.
The world building in this is perfunctory at best.
Oh yeah.
I
I mean,
think,
these all three books came out in 1965, didn't they?
yeah.
This series, but it was in '61 he wrote Dreaming City,
Mm,
and that is head and shoulders above the storytelling in this. Yet it's even that's much shorter than this.
yeah,
Yet you actually feel the characters in it. You actually feel the environment. That you get a sense of the world. You get a sense of the build-ups and the betrayal and all this sort of stuff.
yeah.
Whereas this, I was left a bit sort of like, oh man, it's, I feel I feel a bit let down, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike has said, and in fact, he said when I spoke to him, he said that at the time, he had a lot of bills to pay. He had
Mm,
kids. He wasn't really making any money out of New Worlds. That was costing him a lot of time and effort. If a guy who can knock out 3 short books in a week needs to knock something out to make some cash,
mm,
and it's not as inspired as his original stuff, and he's going to knock out because this really is the closest Mike ever got until coming to the Terraphiles in the fantasy realm to him really just writing for another IP.
yeah,
If you scrub off some of the file names, the Blue Warriors, well, they're what's the name of the 4-armed green guys in Princess of Mars, the race? It slips my
uh,
mind.
I know. I've just finished the book and I can't remember.
Yeah, it slips my mind. But
The
yeah,
Tharks, is it?
Tharks, the
Yeah,
Tharks, yeah.
yeah,
You've got the Hot Princess, you've got the Tharks. The setup is very, very similar. It is basically it's an Edgar Rice Burroughs pastiche, which he himself admits.
mm,
And if a guy needs to make some brass to make sure that he can go on the following year or the year after and write Jewel in the Skull, well, you know what? Fucking good luck to him.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Good luck to him.
yeah.
He did it. People bought it. Great. I do think it does explain why you didn't really get Grafton editions and Panther editions in the
Mm,
70s and 80s, and why after the NEL omnibus in the 80s, you probably never saw this reprinted until the Paizo Planet stories or until the Golanx editions started
mm.
to come out. So, there's probably a reason for that. They're not as sought after, they're not as adored by his other stuff. But you know what? They're there and they exist. and they were a passable read, but
Oh yeah,
yes.
I obviously enjoyed it enough to then go on and buy everything I could get my hands on to do with Moorcock. So
Yeah, absolutely. And had I read this as a kid, I would have been. And I think I read these right. I think I'd already met Loz when I read these because I remember talking to him about them. And I didn't meet Loz till I was 19, I don't think. So I must have read these in my early 20s and thought, meh, and sort of put them aside and not really thought too much about them again. But it's interesting doing this on the podcast because this is episode 124. We've got to get his 60s output out of the door
yeah,
eventually. So you know what, now's a good time. And we have done a bit of Sword and Planet on the podcast before, of course, because we did Danus. Hashtag fucking Danus.
fucking damn.
That's Sword and Planet fiction.
Yeah.
We
And
did,
gore as well.
yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about the origins of Sword and Planet that much because we were too focused on whether that was a one shit book. And I was trying to dodge flack from Natasha for making her read it because she really didn't enjoy it at all. And at the time, that was the 4th Danus book. So I realised I had no idea how it actually all went down and how did this guy become Danus? Well, fortunately, all I had to do the other day, before we were due to record last time, was reach up behind me to Le Shelf Magique and pull down Prisoner of Reglathium.
Oh,
yeah, number 1, Prisoner of Reglathium. And to cut a long story short, he dies on an operating table. But just before they call him out as dead, his old grandma Josie beckons him down a tunnel and he wakes up on Reglathium. And then he fights a monster and he meets some folks and yada, yada, yada. And that's how all that goes down. Now, the most annoying thing about reading the first bit is now I'm going to have to read the whole fucking book. If you start something, you've got to finish, haven't you? Fucking Dennis. And yes, of course, we did do Townsman of Gore and we did find out how Tal Cabot got to Gore. It was all UFOs and weird shit. But there's a whole episode on that bollocks, so we don't have to labour it here, do we?
Good.
Thank God.
That's interesting, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, like that thing with Danus, I mean, it's the same with the Michael Caine stuff and the John Carter stuff. The way they get to Mars is, I mean, Michael Caine, it's with some faulty matter transporter. John Carter goes to sleep in a cave, effectively, and leaves his body and ends up on Mars. And Danus is summoned by his granny towards the light and ends up on Reglathium. So what's going on there?
There's a few different ways of doing it, isn't there? Now I've not read Almeric, but I'm pretty sure the character in Almeric beats someone to death and has to escape and somehow ends up on an alien planet. It's not Mars. And I've got the Planet Stories copy of Almeric kicking around somewhere, and if I go down a proper Sword and Planet rabbit hole, then I'll probably read that as well. Although we were due to talk about Almeric. Now I've got to say this is on me really. I came close on a couple of occasions to doing a pod with friend of the show Anthony Paconti and to look specifically at this genre, and he provided the preface to a really excellent collection edited by Matthew Gomez called Futures That Never Were, a Broadswords and Blasters collection. And it's entirely my fault that these attempts never came off, and I will be chasing them down again for another go. But Anthony wrote that preface, and there's a lot of detail about how the Sword and Planet genre kind of came about and came to be. It's fascinating. You can get that from the usual stockists, the biggest online stockist is probably the easiest way to get that. But it's a really good volume. There's loads of really fantastic short stories in there by lots of different authors with different perspectives. And it's really, really cool. There's some really great female perspectives on the genre in that book as well in those stories. So well worth looking. But Anthony, if you're listening, I will be tapping you up and trying to get you on again because we tried to set it up twice. It might even be last year. And it never came off because of my terrible scheduling. But anyway, we'll have another go at that. But now we're doing it Moorcock style. And it happens that this was published in 1965, just 1 year before John Norman's Townsman of Gore. And as I said, he said he wrote all 3 Caine books in a week. And yes, you can tell. But I was very much hoping when I reread this that what Mike took away from the classic planetary romances of Edgar Rice Burroughs, and, for that matter, the Mars stories of Otis Adelbert Klein, who I think he was something of a fan of and fond of as a youngster, which I now know from flicking through Burroughsania Christmas issue 1956, because he was writing a lot of tales for Weird Tales. But I think we can. Personally, I think these stories slant slightly more towards Klein than they do towards Burroughs. But I haven't read Otis Adelbert Klein's Mars stories for a long time either, and I've got one of them kicking around in a bumper 2-in-1 volume with Mike's revised Sojan the Swordsman.
Oh,
But I've never got around to reading that either. So yeah, because I think he wrote Sojan when he was like 14 or 15 or something.
yeah, it's really early stuff, that.
Yeah. But at least we can be confident, I think, because hopefully I thought to myself it'll be more heroic and intriguingly slanted in Mike's way that he is with genre. It isn't particularly. It's very much a very straightforward pastiche of this type of story, or certainly a pastiche of Burroughs. But at least it's not a load of boring, rapey shit like Gore.
No, absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
a bonus. That's a bonus. So in our prologue, we get the framing device. Oh, I tell you what, though, before we get on with that, this probably is going to come out in early December, which means that this is almost a Christmas episode, right? So I've got a Christmas beverage. I don't know about you, Andy. Do you have a beverage to hand?
I do have a beverage to hand. My beverage to hand is, I thought I'd try and theme it somewhat. This is Beavertown Gamma Ray.
Oh, I do like a Gamma Ray.
Yeah,
Very much.
Absolutely. There we go.
Yeah, I'm a fan of a Gamma Ray. Whereas because technically we're in December, I have got a Silent Night Mint Cocoa Stout, which has got a nice reindeer and some snow and a moon in the background and some fir trees.
That's a beautiful Christmas card cover, that is.
Yeah, and slightly less beautiful is this is 10% alcohol by volume.
Fuck.
So this is going to be a bit syrupy. Unfortunately.
That's just drinking chocolate with alcohol in it.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure how this is going to go. Although,
man.
I do have a slight suspicion we might have had this on before when Loz was on quite a while ago. Because we're getting to the point now where when it comes to fucking stupid stouts and porters, we are going to start repeating ourselves because we've had so bloody many of them. But anyway, we'll give this a go. And to back it up, I've got a Sam Smith's organic stout to wash it away in case it's horrible.
Clean the palate.
Yeah, let's have a look, see how this one goes down. I suspect it might be a bit old as well because that's come out a bit dead.
That's good grief. That colour of that. It's great for podcasts, but you can't see the colour, but the colour is like a very, very strong Americano.
Yeah. It basically looks like a pint glass of very thick coffee.
Yeah, that is. What's the taste like?
As usual with a strong stout, there is a strong coffee thing going on, but it is slightly minty.
Oh,
I'm not entirely sure it works. If I'm going to be absolutely honest, I'm not entirely sure it works. But you know what? It could have been a lot worse, and we've had a lot worse on this podcast. So that will, I think, at the very least, get drunk. So anyway,
yes.
we've got this framing device now, haven't we, of Edward P. Bradbury, which was Moorcock's pen name when he wrote this, meeting Cain and getting into a conversation with him. Pretty standard, very much like the Burroughs framing device.
Yeah.
And Cain is very forthcoming with a stranger too. He has some story to tell, and his story is of how he got to Mars by way of a matter transportation experiment, which of course is, when you're in a cafe and you get into conversation with a tall dude, that's what you always expect to find out, isn't it? Very, very quickly. It's very
exactly what I think.
Yes, very trusting. I think this should happen more, and the world is a fucking boring place for the fact that it doesn't.
What was even more shocking was the fact that by the end of this conversation, he's promised to fund his next matter transfer.
That's right, yes, yeah.
What's going on? It's like a GoFundMe at a cafe, isn't it? Like it's...
Yeah. Bradbury is a man of means.
Yeah,
and he's so instantly taken in with this that he's like, that sounds cool. Because he's been binned off by the people who made this thing. So now he's got to find his own way of reconstructing this experiment. And he also tells Bradbury that he's a scientist, Vietnam veteran, and master swordsman as well.
I know. The whole master swordsman shtick was just cringy, to be honest.
Well, it's a bit tenuous, that, isn't it?
Oh, good grief. Sort of like teenage lads fighting with sticks in a garden, and some guy comes out the house and goes, you're doing that wrong. Come into my house and let me show you my weapons collection and teach you all my skills with the sword. Yeah, okay.
With a really, really bad cod French accent as
yes,
well.
Yes.
To throw into the bargain. Because, yes, it turns out as a kid, he explains that he lived next door to a French master fencer who had trained Tsars. Which, well, it's a bit fucking weird for small town America, that, isn't it?
But, just a little bit.
It all sounds a bit sus. It goes along like this. We first met when I had accepted a dare by my young pal to climb the fence of his house and see if I could observe what Monsieur Clachet was up to. At that time, we were all convinced he was a spy of some description. He'd caught me, but instead of shooting me as I half expected, he had laughed good-naturedly and sent me on my way. I liked him at once. Soon after that, we kids had a phase which was a sequel to seeing Ronald Coleman in The Prisoner of Zenda. We all became Ruperts and Rudolphs for a while. With long canes for swords, we fenced one another to exhaustion, not very skillfully, but with a lot of enthusiasm. On a sunny afternoon in early summer, it so happened that I and another boy, Johnny Bulmer, were duelling for the throne of Ruritania just outside Monsieur Clachet's house. Suddenly there came a great shout from the house, and we wheeled in astonishment. No, no, no! The Frenchman was plainly exasperated. That is wrong! 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 That is not how a gentleman fences! He rushed from his garden and seized my cane, adopting a graceful fencing stance, and facing a startled Johnny, who just stood there with his mouth open. Now, he said to Johnny, you do the same, oui? Johnny inelegantly copied his posture. Now you thrust so! The cane darted out in a flicker of movement and stopped just short of Johnny's chest. Johnny copied him and was parried with equal swiftness. We were amazed and delighted by this time. Here was a man who could have been a good match for Rupert of Hentzau. After a while, Monsieur Clachet stopped and shook his head. It is no good with these sticks. We must have real foils, no? Come. We followed him into the house. It was well furnished, though not lavishly. In a special room at the top, we found more to make us gasp. Here was an array of blades such as we'd never imagined. Now I know them to be foils and épées and sabres, plus a collection of fine antique weapons, claymores, scimitars, samurai swords, broadswords, Roman short swords, the gladius, and many, many more. Monsieur Clachet waved a hand at the fascinating display of weapons. There, my collection. They are sweet, these little swords, no? He took down a small rapier and handed it to me, handing a similar sword to Johnny. It felt really good, holding that well-balanced sword in my hand. I flexed my wrist, not quite able to get the balance. Monsieur Clachet took my hand and showed me the correct way of grasping it. How would you like to learn properly? Said M. Clachet with a wink. I could teach you much. And it kind of goes on from there with this ridiculous cod Frenchman teaching them all this stuff. And then, like, 1 page later, is a trained physicist, but he doesn't sweat the details on that one.
No, not
and
at all.
Boom, he's on Mars, and there's a naked babe.
Yeah. You miss out all of his Vietnam action. You miss out his college years.
Yeah. 2 pages of, like, fucking the worst Frenchman dialogue you've ever read, and then I'm also a physicist and I fought in the jungles of Vietnam.
Yeah,
all just glossed over so we can have some stupid cod Frenchman dialogue. But yeah, this naked babe seems nice anyway, even if they can't talk to each other yet. But then she takes him home anyway because she takes pity on him, seemingly.
Yeah.
So compared to John Carter, it just all seems a little bit more plausible, doesn't it? I mean, I say plausible. It's about some dude ending up on Mars and falling in love with either an entirely naked or a mostly naked princess, and making friends with huge, brutish warrior dudes.
Yeah. They all seem to be naked, though. I mean, I can't quite understand the obsession. Perhaps it's to do with, like, Edgar Rice Brothers, to do with the time there. It was all a bit risque. And then Moorcock's just carried it on with it in the style of. But the fact that they are all naked, which to me is just so impractical.
It must be murder on furniture.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine?
Fucking hell. Yeah.
I mean, how would you possibly concentrate on fighting?
There's a great bit as well where he's really, really happy with his sword and how keen its edge is. And he thinks to himself, yeah, well, I'll tuck it in the loop on my belt because they don't seem to use scabbards here. It's like, you're fucking naked, man.
Yeah.
You're naked. You're going to have an accident. What the fuck? This is a health and safety nightmare.
It is. At the very, very least, he's going to slice part of his thigh off.
Yeah. I mean, the Varnal fucking accident book must be fucking enormous. Just absolutely crazy. It very quick. I mean, and God help the people who have to clean the chairs and sofas. Fucking hell. But it falls very quickly into the trap of Sword and Planet stories as well, where you get sudden exposition. My God, some of this exposition, man. It's I'll read a little bit, but I'm not going to read a lot. There were many nations on Mars, some friendly towards the Karnala. The Karnala are the people who he's just bumped into, by the way. Some friendly towards the Karnala, some not. They all spoke recognizable versions of the same root language. This is supposedly true of Earth, that our language was originally a common one, but in our case the changes have been extreme. That was not the case, I learned, on Vashu. Vashu is what they call Mars. The seas of Mars still existed, Shizala told me, although apparently they were not so vast as Earth's. Varnal, capital of the Karnala nation, was one of a number of countries with rather hazily defined borders, which existed on a large landmass bigger but in roughly the same geographical position than the whole of the American continent. I should point out she's telling him this because she's got a magic, sort of a science magic bangle that allows her to transmit thoughts into his head. He doesn't know Martian yet.
It's the Babel fish, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's technology of an ancient race who aren't around anymore as well, which is another common one. Travel was affected in two main ways. Most ordinary travel relied on the Dahara, a riding and carriage beast of great strength and endurance. But many nations had a few aircraft. As far as I could make out, these relied on atomics, which none of the Vashu people understood. These had not been gifts of the Sheev, I learned, but must once have belonged to the Sheev. They were incredibly ancient by all accounts and could not be replaced when destroyed. Thus, they were only used in emergencies. There were also ships incorporating some sort of atomic engine, and sailing ships of various kinds. These plied the few rivers of Vashu, rivers which were shrinking with almost every year that passed. For arms, the Vashu warriors relied primarily on the sword. They had guns. Shizala showed me hers. It was a long-barreled, finely made weapon with a comfortable grip. I could not quite see what it fired or on what principle it worked, but as Shizala tried to haltingly explain, I concluded that it was some sort of laser gun. What an incredible amount of power, I thought, was packed into its chambers. For we scientists had always argued that a laser handgun was out of the question, since the power required to produce the laser ray, tightly focused light which would cut through steel, relied on a very big generator. Wonderingly, I handed the gun back to her. These guns, not gifts of the Sheev, but probably looted from their now lost or completely ruined cities by Shizala's remote ancestors, were also used infrequently, since once the charge was finally expended, it could not be replaced. Their Akashasad, or ethercraft, apparently numbered 5 in all. 3 of these belonged to the Karnala, and 1 each to the friendly neighbourhood nations, the Iridala and the Walavala. Although there were pilots who could operate them, none of the folk of Vashu had any idea how they worked. Other benefits which a few chosen nations had received from the mysterious Sheev included a longevity serum, which, once taken, did not need to be taken. Change the channel, Marge. Oh my God, it's rough stuff, I've got to say.
It's not handled very well, that. I think you just chucked him with, as you say, a whole shit ton of exposition.
Yeah.
And expected to sort of like, come on, catch up. Yeah, we're there now. We can do something. But it's like, oh, no.
Mike is usually really good at show, don't tell.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Not so much here.
No.
Not so much here at all. It's like, in Princess of Mars, you find out how the guns work really quickly because he observes the Farcs using them.
Yes.
And, so through his observations of the Farcs using these rifle-like weapons, we get to know about these rifle-like weapons. All we're getting here is it's like, this could be, you could transcribe this directly into a Cain of Old Mars role-playing game as just background detail on technology. It's just so dry. But, Chapter 3, Breakfast, Naked Servant Girl. And just in case you wondered whether this was indeed the fevered dreams of a 20-year-old in the post-war rubble of London, it says, I was just finishing when there was another knock on the door. I called, "Come in English, thinking this would do the trick. It did. In walked Shizala, smiling. Oh, I should point out, the servant girl's got the hots for him as well, because he's hot and naked. But
Of course.
seeing her again, it seemed I had dreamed of her all night, for she was as beautiful, if not more so, as I remembered her. Her blonde hair was swept away back from her shoulders and back. She had on a black gauzy cloak, and at her waist was the wide belt containing holstered gun and short sword. These, I gathered, were ceremonial weapons of office, for I could not imagine such a graceful girl having much familiarity with the artefacts of war. On her feet she wore sandals, laced up to the calf, almost to the knee. That's all she was wearing, but it was enough. She picked up the circlet she had worn the day before and put it on. I thought you might wish to ride around the city and see everything, I heard her voice say in my head. Would you like that? Very much, I replied, if you can spare the time. It would please me to do so. She gave me a warm smile. I could not make up my mind whether she felt as attracted to me as I was to her, or whether she was just being normally polite. It was a puzzle which was already beginning to fill a great deal of my thoughts. Oh, blimey. Blimey.
The dialogue with women is just on one level, isn't it? You know, do you fancy me, babe? Yeah. Go on then. Do you want to go out? Yeah.
Yeah. And please don't worry your mind about why I've got something on my lap.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying it.
Inconvenient not having trousers.
Yeah. He don't get to dwell anymore on whether she's in love with him, though, because she takes him to the magic learning machine of the sheave and gets him up to speed on Martianese, which is good. It's quite a popular trope in SF at the time, isn't it? Did you ever see or read Battlefield Earth?
Yes.
So, Battlefield Earth, same thing. Ancient race, technology, instant learning machines. I mean, they even did it in the Matrix, didn't they? But it's very much, I mean, Battlefield Earth, I don't think was published till 1982, and I don't think L. Ron Hubbard was really stealing ideas from Michael Moorcock, but it was a popular trope in SF. Instant learning things, brilliant. There are the magic of machines. I must say there was a time when. Do you remember when there was a very short-lived? I don't know if it was ever really taken seriously, but for a very, very short period of time, there was mail order things for like learn French in your sleep.
Yeah.
By buying this cassette and putting it on your Walkman while you're in bed.
That's right. It was all to do with all of the hemisync stuff and all this Monroe Institute.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. It all drifted out from that.
Yeah. That never went anywhere, did it?
Not really. It's still around, the old hemisync stuff is, but they've gone into the sort of like altering your brain waves now rather than hypnotizing you to learn French while you're asleep, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if that worked, I'd have totes done it. I'm far too lazy to learn a language, but if I could just fucking learn it in my sleep, I'd have done it in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
But anyway, he speaks Martianese now, which is great. Thinking about it, Battlefield Earth is it has a lot of the tropes of a Sword and Planet story, doesn't it? Just like inverted.
It does. I mean, the main character in all Hubbard stuff, I haven't read a lot of his stuff, but he's like a sort of space cadet who runs around with a sword and all this sort of stuff. So it's got that sort of like feel going on, hasn't it?
Yeah. So in Battlefield Earth, Johnny Goodboy Tyler is he lives in a super backwards, isolated community somewhere in the mountains because they think the rest of the Earth is poisonous. Because of course, the aliens, the Cyclos, poisoned the Earth and took it over. But all of that poison gas has dissipated, but they don't realise. So when he actually ventures out, he ventures into a world which might as well be an alien planet and has to deal with giant, aggressive monster dudes, gets captured by them, gets put on a learning machine, gets sent off to do all sorts of ridiculous tasks for the villain. It follows a lot of the beats. The problem with Battlefield Earth, what is it, like 700 pages or something? It's huge, that book.
It's a doorstop in it.
Yeah. But, I'm going to put my cards on the table here. I actually quite enjoyed it. I think I read that in the 90s because you remember when like the Works type bookshops started popping up?
Yeah.
They popped up in the 90s, didn't they? I remember all of the L. Ron Hubbard Invasion Earth volumes were in one for like 50p each.
Mm.
And I think I bought maybe 3 or 4 of them, and I bought Battlefield Earth for 50p, the huge paperback with the green cover. And I did actually get around to reading it, and I read it cover to cover, and I really enjoyed it. And I think one of the things that happened when the film came out is that, of course, the film is terrible, but everybody wanted to jump on it because it was a Scientology vanity project. Everybody wanted to kick it. And they kicked it for being stupid and daft. But the book is deliberately stupid and daft. The book is deliberately tongue-in-cheek and comical, which really kicks in a massive way halfway through when the Cyclos get defeated, which is where the film ends. And then all the other alien races who've been held under the thumb of the Cyclos come and orbit Earth to try and take advantage. And they're all absolute fucking idiots. I remember reading it and just laughing out loud, thinking this is one of the funniest books I've ever read. But I think mostly it was deliberate. And I think the film honed in on some of the deliberately stupid stuff in the book as well, and got bashed for it because people thought it wasn't intentional. But of course it was fucking intentional. You can't watch some of those John Travolta line deliveries and think that for a second they were taking it 100% seriously in terms of the screenwriting and stuff.
No.
It's a bad film, but it's a real guilty pleasure for me. I actually enjoy watching it. My dad loves it as well, so it's like one of those films that I can sit down and put on with my dad, and we'll both have a really fucking good time with it. Yeah, it's absolutely stupid.
Yeah.
But this mind learning machine is really handy. Thanks to the ancient technology of the Sheev, you can speak Martian, and the fellows. There is quite a nice description of the environs that hot naked babe Shizala lives in. And it's quite cool. It's more chilled and civilized than Barsoom so far.
Yes. Well, Barsoom's just brutal from start to finish.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Whereas this lot, they're it's quite boho, isn't it? It's quite boho.
Yeah. This is Martian Soho in the 60s, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very much. But it is a bit more chill. But there are blue giants though, and apparently, which of course explains the cover of our edition, and they're called the Yargzoon. And they're a bit rum. But Kane didn't put off. He's already decided he wants to settle in Varnal, but he's stuck on 2 points. 1, what will he do to earn a living? That's not so much a terrible point because he is a scientist after all, so he reckons he could probably think of something. 2, he doesn't know yet if local custom will allow him to marry Shizala. He's been there like 4 hours.
He's got their whole future planned out, hasn't he? He's got a retirement cottage up in the mountains and everything. He's like, fucking hell.
He's been there 4 hours. This is his first experience ever of interacting with a woman who wears no clobber, and he wants to marry her.
Yeah, this is supposed to be in the 60s where he comes from. He's an American guy who's been to Vietnam. He's obviously been around in the hippie era. Yeah. And yet he's so fucking tongue-tied and just got no idea, has he? Like, it's like he's never done anything other than go to college and learn sword fencing with a French bloke.
That's right. Well, he never interacted with any girls as a teenager. He just learned fencing from Monsieur Clachet. Yeah. It should have been out talking to girls, shouldn't it?
It should have been. What a wrong one.
It gets worse as well, because a local prince, a Bradinak, princes are called Bradinaks, visits Shizala and they have a bit of a row. So instead of concentrating on his cold buffet, which there's loads of, he rebuffs the advice of her retainers, barges into the chamber where she and this Bradinak Telem Faz Ogdai are at it, and he engages in an uninvited display of toxic masculinity by thumping the bloke, before finding out he's actually her betrothed due to a diplomatic arrangement, and she, as a result, gives him a big old fuck-off pill. Which probably quite well deserved at this stage.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. His attitude is a little bit like, you belong to me, woman.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like... We know, because we've read Mike before, that Telem Faz Ogdai 90% is going to be a villain.
Yeah.
Because it's been coded by a villain because he's arguing with her. And he's the betrothed of the love interest of our hero already. But she says, she frowned and sent a shudder through me to see that I had angered her. She drew herself up and pulled a bell cord. You do not behave as befits a stranger and a guest, she said coldly. You presume too much, which I think is fair. I am sorry, deeply sorry. I was impulsive, but in the same emotional voice she said, it was my father's wish that when he died and I succeeded him, I should marry the son of his old ally, thus making sure of the Carnales' security. I intend to respect my father's wish. You are presumptuous to make any comment concerning my relationship with the Bradinac of Mishimtep. This was a side of Shizala I had not seen before. The regal side. I must have offended her deeply for her to adopt this manner and tone, for I knew it was not natural.
Yeah, the regal side. She's not allowed to have a mind of her own.
It's absolutely incredible. I am very sorry. I accept your apology. You will not interfere again. Now please leave. In confusion, I turned and left the room. Bewildered, I walked straight from the great hall down the steps of the palace to where a servant was just leading away the Dahara I had been riding earlier. With a muttered word to the servant, I mounted the beast and shook its reins, making it gallop away down the main street towards one of the gates of the city. I had to go right away from Varnal for the time being, had to go somewhere where I could be alone to collect my thoughts and pull myself together. Shizala? Betrothed? A girl whom, I knew now, I had loved from the moment I saw her? It was too much to bear. My heart beating much more rapidly than normal and my thoughts racing, my whole being seething with anguish, I rode blindly from the city past the green lake and out into the calling hills. Oh, Shizala, Shizala, I thought, I could have made you so happy. I believe that I was close to crying then. I, Michael Caine, who had always prided himself on his self-control. What a cock.
He's a total dick, isn't he?
What a fucking tool. But fortunately for him and for us, he rides into a horde of blue giants en route to raid Varnal. Thank fuck for that.
Indeed, he can get rid of his fucking anger by chopping people up, can't he?
What an absolute douchebag this guy is. Seriously. So, you occasionally see these things, don't you, on YouTube? And sometimes I can't help but watch them. And it's like dismantlings of famous YouTubers who got exposed for being weird, toxic dickheads, and like subjecting women who were nice to them or were their friends to absolutely fucking appalling behaviour. And when you read this, it's like, oh my God. Some of this stuff has been so coded into our fiction, over the years. But John Carter's not as much of a knobhead as this, is he?
To be honest, no, he's not. He has his moments, but he's actually quite respectful and actually quite, it's more of a partnership rather than being, I saw you and I love you, therefore you are mine.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually work like that. It's got its ups and downs, but
yeah, it's funny, the Princess of Mars, the Burroughs Mars stories, because they do have their problems because of when they were written. Like, you come across them quite quickly, don't you?
Well, page 3, I think, where he talks about slaves and things like
slaves
that.
And refers to the Indians as savages.
Yeah.
They're coded as like hooting, hollering, superstitious weirdos. Yeah, so there are problems, but on the whole, John Carter himself behaves honourably and as a man of his time who considered himself an officer or a gentleman probably would have. Yeah, whereas this guy's just behaving like a complete fucking tool.
He's a juvenile delinquent who's got a lot more muscle than he ought to have for his mental age.
Yeah, but we'll get some action as Caine runs into a couple of scouts, has a good scrap. Standard entertaining Moorcock action, nice description of the big geezers, all tough blue skin, overlaid leather armour. He dispatches the first thanks to its overconfidence, gets its sword managing to grievously wound the second, but at least here he shows some principles and heroism when he spares the second giant and hides him in some brush, much to that Argzoon's surprise, because the Argzoon's like, okay, it's something of a trope, spare the savage invader and show him compassion, this will pay dividends story-wise later, but it's there, it sets it up, it establishes Caine, other than his ability to relate to women, as a moral, principled dude, right? Fair enough at this point. It's better than leading off with, "Hey, look, a naked princess. I'll love her with all my heart. I'm really divided on this scenario whether she's betrothed. I just knocked a fiance out after knowing her for 5 minutes. But is it wrong of me to think she might be into me too?" You know what? Spread that out a bit, man. Spread that out a bit. Let's have some fighting. Let's establish his heroic credentials, for fuck's sake.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. There is a bit like that in with John Carter, where he when he finally gets to Helium and the city where Deja Thoris is has been returned, and she thinks he's dead, and she's got sort of like hitched or engaged anyway to this other guy, from another rival city who are sieging them.
Yeah.
And then she tells him that because of the customs of Barsoom, she cannot break her promise and she has to marry him. And that is pretty much what Michael Caine gets told in this, that she's promised she's going to marry this guy, and therefore all bets are off.
Yeah. Until the end, where this guy gets killed, and he spoilers. Well, what say what happens at the end until we get to the end? But
okay,
we'll probably rattle through this a little bit quickly because we've been going for nearly an hour, and we're only about 35 pages in. But after sparing this blue, I mean, you know, we are reading a book from 1965, so of course, you know, but it's still all a bit crap even by 65 standards. It's juvenile as hell in many, many ways. And considering the other things he was writing in the 60s, this is weak sauce for Mike. And it did occur to me when I was reading this, if he is pastiching Burroughs here very, very accurately, maybe that's fair. But actually, I think we've just said Burroughs was very good in terms of prose. Even in his first novel, this was Princess of Mars was a fix-up of Under the Moons of Mars, which was a series of serialized stories. But, you know, he was a great writer. There's a fucking reason he sold so well, and he wrote so many books, and they flew off the shelves and people were reading them. Because it's the same when we read Land That Time Forgot. I'd never read the book until we did that podcast. I was taken aback at actually just how good his writing was.
It's that era, though, isn't it? I mean, you got Rider Haggard and you know, H.G. Wells is contemporary pretty much.
Yeah.
And so you've got all of these great writers who and of course Lovecraft was around the same time as well. So you've got all of these people and a big pool of stuff that you've got to compete with.
Yeah.
And actually sort of like, you know, up your game. And I'm guessing because of the educational standards in those days, English was really, really pushed, and grammar, and did the descriptive stuff. And I think it comes over in the use of terminology, and just the way, and the syntax, and the way it all just folds together nicely. And there's nothing jarring in it. You just flow through it. Even if it's completely unbelievable, you just flow through the story because it reads well. Yeah.
We might have to do Princess of Mars at some point. I think actually as a podcast, but that's something for the future, I think. But after sparing this big blue fella, Caine rides back to the city, raises the alarm. Shizala and co are all very surprised by all of this, believing the Argzoon's capabilities still massively diminished after her father defeated them 10 years ago. So her father defeated them 10 years ago and went off with a big force to try and find the city of the Argzoon, but never came back. But they haven't heard from the watchtowers in a while, she muses. But fortunately, Caine is there to start telling her what to do. And we get this big attack. And basically, for 2 pages, her and her brother, whose name I've forgotten already, the city's under the attack by the Argzoon. And he's just barking orders at them.
Oh, yeah, he mansplains the whole thing to him, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, he does, yeah. Yeah, it's like, no time for self-recrimination now, I pointed out. Where's your brother Darnad? As Chief Pukan Nara of Varnal, it's up to him to direct preparations for defences. What of the other warriors of Kanala? It seems impossible you received no warning at all, not even a runner from another city. How have the Argzoon been able to get this far south without you knowing? Then he sets the strategy for how they repel the attack. Obviously, so he's made himself indispensable by mansplaining and saying, I was trained for war. Oh, yeah.
He served 1 tour in Vietnam, along with a bunch of other 19-year-olds. Like,
I was trained for war. Yeah. Kane gets tooled up anyway with a nice sword and a dart gun. This is the sword, and when he puts it on, he's like, oh yeah, I'll just put it through this loop because they don't use scabbards here. Hopefully I won't chop my cock off. But he gets tooled up with a dart gun, goes to a council war with Shazala, her 17-year-old brother Darnell, and her fiancé, Telem Faz Ogdai, who takes an airship boat thing back to his city to warn them and seek aid, but not before he shoots Kane some side-eye. No. There's also a bit where there's a amusing paragraph where Kane is looking at Darnell. It says, having had some training in warfare, I was able to make some suggestions which he found useful. He looked at me with something like admiration, and I accepted the look as a compliment, for I might have been doing much the same. His essential manliness and clear-headed, objective attitude to the task ahead made me feel that he was ideal as a military leader, and I felt that to fight beside him would be reassuring, to say the least. It would also be, in a way, a pleasure.
Bit of a bromance there, isn't there?
Bit of a bromance going on. But I don't think the bromance would have occurred had this 17-year-old boy not been looking at him admiringly.
No.
It just feeds this image I have of Kane laid on top of this absolute goof of a gym bro who learned fencing from his neighbour, who claims to be the fencing master of the Tsars, who falls in love with and gets possessive of a woman who talks to him and holds eye contact for more than 5 seconds. And now you've got the hat trick. Having had some training in warfare translates in my head to, I bought all 90 issues of In Combat in the 80s and even had the official binders.
Yeah.
It's like, I bet Pete Hegseth says exactly the same stuff in meetings. Said, I've been trained in warfare. Then the Agzoon arrive, the Agzoon attack the city, Kane's desperate to get involved, and we learn a few things. Bullet point list. Number 1, is a top warrior, obviously. Number 2, the Agzoon are very organised in their attack, more so than Shizala would have assumed. Therefore, they must have a cunning leader. Next point that we learn, the servant girls all have the horn for Kane. Next thing that we learn, silly units of time and measurement.
Oh, fuck yes.
Oh, no.
It's Dana's, isn't it?
Oh, no. I thought we'd got away with this, but no, it's right there. A kiloder is about 4 inches. 3 kiloders to a foot. And a shatty is about 1/8 of an earth hour.
1/8 of a fucking hour. What the?
So from here on, it's like, right, I figured that it would take me about 7 shatties to get to where I needed to be. Or, the Agzoon will be here in 4 shatties. And it's like, oh, God, for fuck's sake, what's a shatty again?
Yeah.
And there's no glossary. There's no Danish glossary here.
No.
So
I mean, how long have you been there at this point? It's like 4 days or 5 days, something like that. And already he's forgotten all his Earth time measurements and distances, and he's just converted everything into Martian.
Yeah. I mean, you could even say the Martians call things kiloders and shatties, but for the sake of this journal, or for the sake of this account, I'll keep it simple and won't make you keep leaping back to your calculator to figure this shit out. Oh, God, why bother? Anyway, why is an author bother? It doesn't add anything, does it?
No. It's enough that things are different, really.
Yeah. Well, they spot the gaffer tent the next day, and Kane has a plan to use one of the remaining aircraft to fly over the tent, jump out, and onto the tent and slay the commander. But unfortunately, practical problems, it takes a day to warm up the engine. So he has to do more fighting. But not before he slags off Shizala's bloke again to her face by suggesting with zero subtlety that he's a douche. So he continues to be a fucking dork, and she's a bit shorty with him before he goes to do some scrapping. Checks notes, 3 shatties later.
Oh,
yeah. Which is 22, 23 minutes.
Yeah.
But later that day, time to fly. So, 4 shatties before dusk. He boards the ship, but he needs an ace pilot. It's going to be Shizala, isn't it? Of course it is. It's Shizala. Kane's reaction to this? This is no job for a woman.
I'm not. It's fucking Harry Enfield, isn't it? Women, know your place.
Women, know your place.
Yeah.
You must not fly airships for 4 shatties. Yeah. But she's not convinced. And it all goes stupidly anyway. The Agzoonian warriors that a few pages ago that were super hardcore and menacing, that he barely escaped with his life are now just worthless goons. Right, in Eternal Champion stories, he at least has some kind of magic items to butcher a horde of baddies, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Now, Kane is dispatching the Agzoon governor's bodyguards in 5 seconds. But mystery of mysteries, there's a hot human babe in there too. And before Kane could do much other than tell her he's from a future Earth and for him to ask him if he's heard of her to ask him, have you heard of Raharumara? Turns out he hasn't. Raharumara. Have you heard of Raharumara? And he says no. And then sounds of battle come from outside the tent, and it turns out a host of dudes from Shrinai, another city, who happened to be in the area, teamed up with a patrol from Varnal, and they decided to attack the massive Agzunian camp. So the Agzunian now really are made of jelly, and the Agzunians are made of jelly for the rest of this book.
They are. It's that's really disappointing because they had potential to be hardcore motherfuckers, didn't they?
Yeah. It's a bit disappointing how they just end up made of paper.
Which is completely unlike the Tharks, because the Tharks are all bloodthirsty nightmares on legs, aren't they? All fucking...
Yeah. The Tharks are ace. I love the Tharks.
Yeah.
They're nails and they're absolute head cases. Yeah, they're great. Can I read this bit? It says, at last we had them on the run, and the combined force of Shrinai and Karnala chased the retreating Agzoon towards the Calling Hills from whence they'd come. The Agzoon stood their ground on the crest of the first range of hills, and then we withdrew to count our strength and plan fresh strategy. It was soon obvious that the Agzoon still outnumbered us, and that the Shrinai and Karnala who had attacked them from behind had had the advantage of being fresh and able to take the Agzoon by surprise. But I felt much better. Now I decided we could withstand the next attack and hold the Agzoon off until help came. Then I remembered the ship and Shizala. I returned to the now ruined Agzoon camp. The tent with the banner was still standing. Unlike most of the others, and, rather strangely, the ship still hovered above it. It seemed to me, peering through the moonlit darkness, that the ship was now lower above the roof, the rope ladder brushing the top of the tent. I called her name, but silence greeted me. With a feeling of foreboding, I climbed up the yielding side of the tent. It was a hard climb, but I made it rapidly, almost in panic. Sure enough, the rope ladder was closer, the ship lower. I grabbed the ladder and began to clamber up it. Soon I was inside the ship. A brief glance showed me that it was empty. Shizala had gone. How? Where? What had happened to her? What had she done? Why had she left the ship? What reason was there for her doing such a thing? All these thoughts raced through my brain, and then I was dropping down the rope ladder again, hand over hand, until I was above the now uncovered roof opening. I dropped through it as I had done earlier. Save for the corpse of Ranak Mard is the guy, the big Agzunian he assumed was the boss. The tent was empty, yet there were signs of a struggle, and I noticed that Ranak Mard's sword had been removed from his dead grasp and now lay on the other side of the tent. Something else lay beside it. A gun. A gun of the sheave. It could only be Shizala's gun. The mysterious dark-haired woman, Horgul, and the Agzoon warriors must have taken part in a struggle soon after I had left. For some reason best known to herself, Shizala had decided to follow me in the tent. She had found me gone, of course, and confronted Horgul and the Agzoon. There had probably been a fight, and Shizala had been overpowered and captured. She had not been killed, that was a mercy, or I should have found her corpse. Abducted, then? My misguided plan to kill the absent mastermind behind the Agzoon had been worthless. All my plan had succeeded in doing was putting a hostage in the hands of the Agzoon. The best hostage they could ever hope for. The ruler of Varnal. I began to curse myself as I would never curse another, even my greatest enemy. Now, to cut out the flab, I made a note here, Chapter 7, brackets, my will to read on gets tested. Let's cut out some flab, if you can call it flab, in a one-shit book like this, because this is a one-shit book. This would be a fast, easy read, but it'd be a lot easier if it was any good. But Darnell turns up, and thinking Kane has entered a battle rage because he's chased after the Agzoons, go, come back, you rotters. They stop him chasing the Agzoon into the hill, knock him out, and take him back to Varnal, and he doesn't come to for a whole 36 shatties.
So what's that, about an hour and a half, something like that?
About 4 hours. 4 hours and 4 shatties. Yeah. Because 8 shatties to an hour. So yeah, 4 hours and 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway, they form a rescue mission, head out, fight some Axunians, take some prisoners, go to the Crimson Plain, fight more Axunians, take more prisoners, learn that sightings suggest Sajala has been taken to Narlet, City of Thieves. The Crimson Plain is really disappointing, by the way.
It is. When they get to the city and it's in this cave system and it's, you think, oh, this could be interesting because they're going to go all subterranean now. It's going to get all sort of like, journey to the center of the earth stuff, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But even that's just like a big fucking cave with some tents in it.
Yeah.
It's not even, it's not even, there's a few buildings, but it's not exciting. It's not even like a sort of a, what is it? The Native American people who lived in the cliffs you'd think it would be a bit like that, those sort of like that sort of buildings where it could
do something interesting.
Fucking anything.
Yeah. We've got a chapter. Chapter 8 is called Narlet, the City of Thieves, right?
Yeah.
Usually in a sword and sorcerer novel, even the poorer ones, even the Thongor books, which I thought were a bit crap.
Yeah.
If you find yourself in a city, particularly City of Thieves, you can expect a flavourful description of the place and get a sense of it. Sights, sounds, smells. This is a Moorcock book, right? Surely we'll get some of that. No, we don't. It's balls. But Darnell has a mate there, an old geezer who tells them what they need to know. 2 Axoon with 2 women, one fair, one dark, are in the citadel of the local Braddy, a greasy sort called Chinod-Sai. He gives them some tranquilizer guns so they can raid the joint with their 6 remaining Varnal dudes because they've been gradually losing people as they've fought ragtag bunches of Axoon as they go along. They find the women. Shizala is tied up, but the villainous dark chick isn't. Shizala goes, "Oh, Michael Caine, thank Zah, you've come." And then I'm going to read this bit if it's short. Let's have a look. Oh, yeah. "No time for conversation," I said brusquely, trying to hide the emotion that her closeness brought to my breast. "We must escape." Dan had his hand over Horgul's mouth. He looked unhappy, not used to treating a woman so. "Horgul is no prisoner," Shizala said. "I can say that now," I said. "Come, we must hurry." So she's trying to tell him some useful information there. He's just shutting it down. We turned and left the room. Dan had released his hold on Horgul and followed us. But before we could reach the window, a score of men led by 2 Axoon giants and another who wore a bright circlet on his matted, greasy hair broke into the room. Dan had myself and our 6 warriors turned to face them, forming a barrier between them and Shizala. "Leave quickly, Shizala," I said softly. "Go to the house of Belet Vor." I gave her brief instructions on how to find the old man. Right, let's unpack that a little bit. Let's just unpack that. What are these brief instructions that he gives her while they're just about to be mobbed by Axoon giants and guards? It's head across the market square, past Jeff's chuck shop, 3 doors down, there's an alley to the left. Go down there, knock 4 times on that door, they'll let you through into the next alley. It's fucking stupid. It's absolutely stupid. Leave quickly, go to the house of Belet Vor. I gave her brief instructions how to find the old man. "I cannot leave you. I cannot." "You must. It will serve us better if we know you, at least. Are safe. Please do as I say." I was staring at the Axoon and the others, waiting for them to attack. They were moving in cautiously, giving them plenty of time to have this dialogue. She seemed to understand my reasoning, and it was relief that I saw from the corner of my eye chamber. I saw from the corner of my eye clamber over the sill and disappear into the night. Horgul emerged from the other room, pointing an imperious finger at us. Her face was flushed with anger. "These men sought to abduct me and the other woman," she said to the greasy-haired man who stood there with drawn sword. "So, did you not know," he said, addressing us with a leer, "that Chinod-Sai values the safety of his guests and resents the intrusion of riffraff such as you?" "Riffraff? Murderer of children," said Darnad. "I know you upstart who calls himself Braddy of a collection of cutthroats and pilferers." Chinod-Sai sneered. "You speak bravely, but your words are hollow. You are all about to die." And then they have a fight. And only Darnad and Caine survive, and then they get knocked out. They get mobbed and knocked out, and they get locked up. Chapter 9 is called Buried Alive, right?
Yeah.
Which promises much.
It does.
But delivers little.
Yeah.
What a surprise! Because in this case, Buried Alive means being put under some floor tiles in a kitchen or something.
That's exactly what it is.
In like a crawl space under some floor tiles. And they're only down there about 10 minutes before Chinodsai lifts them up so he can gloat.
Yeah.
And they escape and have another scrap. And then he kills Chinodsai. But in chapter 10, we find out that the old dude who helped him out is dead. Poor Beletzor. We knew you barely at all. But he's dead. She's gone. So they sent her there. It didn't work. They sent her out into the world with brief instructions to get to the house of a dude who's dead when they get there, and she's gone. But they hear from a surviving guard that the two women were seen heading out of town towards the Argzoon Mountains. So they assume that they must be headed to the Caves of Darkness. So over the Crimson Plains, we've got the Caves of Darkness, we've got the City of Thieves. This is like a 13-year-old's D&D map.
It is. It's poor.
Yeah, it really is. Although it does take them weeks and weeks to get there, apparently.
Yeah.
And Cain and Dan had set off to the Caves of Darkness. They cross the Wilderness of Sorrow in one very short paragraph. They borrow a boat from an old fisherman and cross the Karzak's River in another. And then they go onward into a scary forest, where for the first time in this book we get a Michael Moorcock random encounter. But this time it's a giant spider called a healer, and Cain kills it in about 6 seconds.
It does.
It's a bit of a bummer. Could have got interested there for a moment. But it's like Mike's just like, right, I've got to do something between them getting to the Caves of Darkness and leaving the City of Thieves. Giant spider. Boom, done. Now the air grew colder. We had been travelling for well over a month. So that paragraph of the Wilderness of Sorrow and the scary forest, that was a month's travelogue. And the skies grew darker. We began to cross a vast plain of black mud and obsidian rock, stunted sinister shrubs and ancient ruins. The feet of our single Dahara splashed in deep muddles or waded through oozing mud, slipped on the glassy rock or stumbled over great areas of broken masonry. I asked Darnard if these were the ruins of the Sheev, but he muttered that he did not think so. I suspect these ruins were once inhabited by the Yaksha. I shivered as cold rain fell on us. Who were the Yaksha? It's said they are ancient enemies of the Sheev, but originally of the same race. This is all you know. Those are the facts. The rest is superstition and speculation. I'm thinking at this point, this is going to come into play. At some point, it doesn't.
No.
Maybe it comes into play in a later book. I don't know. But not in this book.
No.
Ruins of the Sheev, no. If you're reading the omnibus of all three Cain tales at once, maybe so. So they've been travelling for 6 weeks or something, which makes it even more tenuous that they even guessed correctly that the women were headed for the Caves of Darkness, given that they're headed in a certain direction, and but we'll let it slide because we've got to get to the end of this bollocks. But it turns out the Caves of Darkness, number one, they're not really that dark.
It's false advertising, man.
They are not dark at all.
No.
They just contain the relatively bustling tent city of the Argzoon.
Yeah.
So the lurk in the shadows a bit, and there's this absolutely fucking brilliant passage, which is probably my favourite passage in the book. Not once did either of us think of returning to find help. It seemed too late for that. We must rescue Shizala ourselves. They've been travelling for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Not once did either of us think of returning to find help. It was a bit fucking late, isn't it? But it occurred to me, who else knew where Shizala was held? Who else had all the information concerning the Argzoon that we had? The answer was plain. None. When we had gone a little distance, I turned to Dan and said bluntly, "You must go back." Go back? Are you mad? No, I'm perfectly sane for once. Don't you realise that if we are both killed in this attempt, then there can be no further attempts to save Shizala? For what we know, we'll die with us. I had not thought of that, he mused. But why should I go back? You go. No, you know the geography of Vashu better than I. I might easily get lost. Now you have led me to the mountains of Argzoon, you must return to the nearest friendly settlement, send messages to tell you where I am, where Shizala is, get the news out as fast as you can. Then a big force of warriors can come over here while the Argzoon are still depleted and recovering and wipe out the threat of the blue giants once and for all. But it'll take me weeks to get back to civilization of any sort. If you get into trouble here, you'll be dead long before I can bring help. If personal safety were our first consideration, I reminded him, neither of us would be here now. You must see the logic of what I say. Go. He thought deeply for a moment, then clapped me on the shoulder, turned and began to make his way rapidly back in the direction would come. Once made up, Darnad's mind made him act swiftly. Now, Darnad sets off to find help. Right? We'll come back to this in a moment. So he sends Daz out. He creeps into town, finds an old slave dude, rapidly deduces that the Argzoon attack was a big master plan to weaken the nations of the south so other human races could invade them or something. I never quite figured out what the grand plan was.
No, it was a bit tenuous, that.
Yeah, but Hargul, the dark-haired hot babe, is the queen of the Argzoon. She was in command all along. It was only Michael Caine's misogyny that stopped him realising or even considering that might be the case.
You know what? That sort of trope with every time you see two women in this sort of story, and I think Robert E. Howard was very guilty of doing this as well. If you got two birds in a situation, one was always really bad and evil, and one was always completely innocent and sexy.
Yeah.
And therefore Conan, or whoever else it was, would have to have some sort of confrontation with this evil bird. But then, of course, being the hero, he couldn't kill her. It had to be down to somebody else to kill because she was female. And it's got that whole feel going on. You can't have two strong women or two women who are even remotely main characters in the story being anything but opposing sides.
Yeah, that carries over into the sword and sorcery movies of the 80s as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So like Conan the Destroyer, for example.
Yes.
You don't have an evil queen type in Conan the Barbarian, but in Conan the Destroyer, I mean, I'll forgive it because I love Sarah Douglas.
Oh, well.
And it gave us Sarah Douglas. And you've got it in Red Sonja, which, funnily enough, it's Sandal Bergman who played Valeria in Conan the Barbarian. She's the evil queen in Red Sonja.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much a thing. Very much a thing. And very much a thing in all the Roger Corman ones as well.
Yeah.
You have usually the dark-haired evil woman and the heroic woman who has to be saved is blonde. But yeah, it's a big thing. But Michael Caine never even for a second thought that when he entered that tent that the woman might be the gaffer, not the Argzoonian. Yeah. But her blue goons beat him up anyway. And chapter 12, Hargul lets slip that she fancies Michael Caine and wants him to join her and her voluptuous hot body and be her dude and rule the Argzoon. But he says no, so she condemns him to be thrown to the giant snake monster god that the Argzoon worship. She was to be thrown to when she was a 16-year-old slave girl, but realised she could hypnotise and control it somehow, and therefore became their queen. So the Argzoons are quite shallow, aren't they?
Yeah, rather.
Quite shallow, simple dudes. And it turns out that the giant snake beast is the Rahanamanaruna, or whatever the fuck it was that she was asking about earlier on. So cool, he gets thrown into the pit, but something happens, because earlier, a heroic and principal act that he carried out pays off. Once he's thrown into the pit, an Argzoon warrior cries out and jumps in after him. And of course, it's the Argzoon warrior that he saves, who is now his best mate, which is nice. So it's his Tars Tarkas analogue, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah.
Yeah, this guy. So we get a nice fight, and it's actually quite decent. You know, there's a decent battle with the Gnarl beast or whatever it's called, big giant snake. They take its head off. It's pretty good.
That's the best fight in the book, to be honest.
It's not exactly strong competition, but it's probably the best part of the book. Our hero does something principled. It pays off. He's got a new buddy. Someone with an understandable motivation beyond, hey, Michael Caine, you're cool and handsome. He's called Movat Jard, and now they can not only save the day, but also have adventures in this strange world. And I'm sure he will be part of the deal for the rest of these books. If he's not, I'll be really upset. Whether I'll read them or not to find out, well, I don't know.
Who knows?
Maybe. But it all gets real. Right now, it all becomes Warlords of Atlantis.
Yes.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because they find a load of slaves, with one older slave being a leader of sorts called Karnak, and he leads a slave revolt. Now, you know, at this point, because I love Warlords of Atlantis, I'm just visualising Warlords of Atlantis now, and Michael Caine is Doug McClure. But I'm not picturing naked Doug McClure, I should point out.
Never.
I'm picturing Doug McClure in a nice pair of tan pants and a white shirt and a waistcoat. Yeah. Movat Jard explains his motivations for helping fight against his own kind, they actually make sense because his own kind have become stupid and corruptible and easily led by this evil queen. So he needs to fight against his own kind to free them, and then everything will be better. So it's a price worth paying. All right, that makes sense. It actually gets pretty okay at the end. It's took over a whole 100 pages, but Cain is now leading a rebellion of slaves against an evil queen, helped by his new mate that he inspired through an act of bravery and kindness. Great. This is what I came for, really.
Yeah.
You know? I had to double check at this point. I went back and I know Warlords of Atlantis wasn't an Edgar Rice Burroughs story, but I had to go and double check. But it was made as part of that run of films that were, so they were fully in that zone. But yeah, I'm enjoying it at this point. Most of the Agzoon are demoralised by the death of the snake god. They now realise Hargul is a charlatan because they're fickle fuckers. And Cain and Co fight their way to the Tower of Vulse, where Shizala is being held. But there's a twist. There's an aircraft atop the tower, which I'm puzzled by because I thought they were underground. But there's a little hand-wavy explanation later that they fly off through some tunnels.
Yeah. Yeah, that did confuse me as well, actually, because I thought, how the fuck did that get in there? That's not going to go very far, is it?
Yeah. So this tower is still definitely in a huge cave, but he explains when they nab the airship later on and fuck off through the tunnels. Anyway, but if you're familiar with Rice Burroughs and John Carter stories, you know exactly what's coming. Although I suppose there is a slight twist on it. For a moment, I confess that my emotion was one of dreadful disappointment rather than joy that Shizala was safe in the arms of a protector. I dropped my guard and smiled at Telem Faz Ogdai, greeting Bradanak. And that's a typo, I think. Greeting Bradanak. There is no S on it. That's not me fucking it up. I am glad to see that you have managed to keep the Bradinaka from danger. How did you get here? Did you hear something of where we had gone in Narlet, perhaps? Or was Darnad able to get word to you more swiftly than I had supposed? Poor Darnad. He's out in the wilderness of sorrow at the moment, just running blindly. No idea what's going on.
No.
Tell him Fazogdai smiled and shrugged. Does it matter? I'm here and Shizala is safe. That's the important thing. I felt the answer rather unnecessarily oblique, but accepted it. Michael Caine, Shizala said. I was sure you'd been killed by now. Providence is on my side, it seems, I said, trying to hide the expression in my eyes, which must have added, saving the most important matter of my life. I hear you've performed miracles of daring, Telem Fazogdai spoke somewhat ironically. My dislike for him increased in spite of my effort to take an objective attitude to him. It was not helping me. Objective? You're a bit fucking late, Michael Caine. Providence again, I said. Perhaps you will leave us for a moment, Telem Fazogdai said. I would like to have some words with Shizala in private. I would not be boorish a second time. I bowed slightly and went out of the room. As the door closed, I heard Shizala's voice suddenly scream loudly. It was too much. In spite of my earlier encounter at the Palace of Varnal, I could not control myself. I sprang back into the room. Shizala was struggling in the grasp of scowling Telem Fazogdai. He was trying to drag her towards the window to where his aircraft waited. Stop, I ordered levelly. She was sobbing. Michael Caine! He... I am sorry, Shizala, but no matter what you think of me for it, I will not stand by and see a brute handle a lady so. Telem Fazogdai laughed. He had sheathed his sword, but now he released Shizala in order to draw it. To my surprise, she ran immediately to me. He is a traitor, she shouted. Telem Fazogdai was in league with Hargul. They planned to rule the continent together. I could hardly believe my ears. Bullshit. I drew my own blade. He threatened to kill you unless I remained silent just now, she went on. I did not want that. Telem Fazogdai chuckled. Remember your bond, Shizala. You must still marry me. When the world learns you are a traitor, I said, she will not. She shook her head. No, a bond of the kind we made goes higher than ordinary law. He is right. We will be exiled. But that's a cruel law. It is tradition, she said simply. It is a custom of our folk. If tradition is ignored, society will crumble. We know that. Therefore, the individual must sometimes suffer unjustly for the sake of the great law. It was hard for me to argue against this. I may be old-fashioned, but I have great respect for tradition and custom as pillars of society. What is just a dickhead, isn't he? Anyway, a few paragraphs later, the rotter's on the floor with a hole in his throat, and despite choking on his own blood, he manages about a page worth of dialogue.
He does, actually. He's very good.
Yeah, to confess. He confesses that he was bewitched and hypnotised by the evil woman, Hargul, and she has fled, and then he dies. After a page of exposition. But Shazala's free of a marriage bond. She has a good sob. She tells Kane she loves him. Fucking hell, Andy. It's all coming up trumps for Kane, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Oh, and in a final twist, Karnak, leader of the slave revolt, is Shizala's dad too, which, after getting momentarily miffed that he's hugging Shizala... What?
I know.
What?
Some old slave dude. He's like jealous.
Yeah, he gets miffed because the old slave dude hugs Shizala. But then when she says, "Oh, father," he's like, "All right, that's cool, I suppose."
Yeah, I don't have to beat you to death or anything like that.
What an insecure knobhead.
It really is.
But Kane's cool because he agrees to their betrothal. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Huzzah. It all ends swimmingly. His Argzoom mate gets left in charge of the Blue Folk. They have a ship to get back to Varnal in, and everything's going to be amazeballs. But no idea where Darnad is. This has all happened in a couple of hours since he agreed to head off on the 6-week journey to get help. Do they even think for looking for him and picking him up?
No.
Do they fuck?
No.
Let's fly off back to Varnal. Poor Darnad is in the wilderness of sorrow. Oh, must get back. Must make 6-week journey to get help.
Battling spiders.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, incredible. Yeah, so he's probably getting eaten by Healer at the moment. Yeah. But, of course, it all goes peak-tongue, doesn't it? Because they're soon hovering over Varnal. When the city discovered who we were, it went mad with joy, and we were received with great ceremony. The betrothal was fixed for the following day, and I went to my old room that night in a state of tremendous happiness. But after all this came the bitterest blow of all. It was as if fate had decided to make me go through all these trials simply to snatch away my reward at the final moment. For in the night, I felt a strange, familiar sensation come over me. I felt my body seeming to breath apart.
I think that should be breathe apart, but yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Felt as if, once again, I was drawn across space and time at fantastic speed. Then it was over and I was lying down again. I smiled, thinking that it had been a dream. I felt a light in my eyes and thought it must be morning, the morning of my betrothal. I opened my eyes and looked into the smiling face of Dr. Logan, my chief assistant at the laboratories. Logan, I gasped, where am I? What's happened? I don't know, Professor, he said. Your body is a mass of scars, but you've put on extra muscle from somewhere. How do you feel? What has happened? I repeated loudly. You mean this end? Well, it took us about 7 hours, but we finally picked you up again on some funny wavelength. We thought we'd lost you altogether. Something went wrong with the transmitter. Some jamming, perhaps. I don't know. I got up and seized him by his lab coat. You've got to send me back. You've got to send me back. Hey, your experiences haven't done you any good, Prof, one of the technicians said. You're lucky to be alive at all. We've been working for 7 hours. You were as good as dead. I still am, I said, my shoulders sagging. I let go of Logan's coat and stood there looking at the equipment. It had taken me to a place of high adventure and a lovely woman, and it had brought me back to this drab world. I was hustled away to the sick bay and they wouldn't let me out for weeks with what the doctors and psychologists were trying to discover what had really happened to me. I was judged unfit for work, and they'd never let me get near the transmitter, of course, although I tried several times. Finally, they sent me to Europe on extended leave. And here I am. Unlucky, Michael Caine. Unlucky. Of course, that is the ending to Princess of Mars as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Saves the day, is about to marry Hot Princess, and he gets catapulted back to Virginia, Arizona, wherever it is.
Arizona, yeah. At
Okay.
least he has 10 years with her before he gets actually bumped back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so Michael Caine.
No,
he
Michael-
doesn't even get any rumpy pumpy.
He
does
don't even get a snog. He's just
Yeah.
booted straight out into outer space again.
Yeah, and there is the classic epilogue, of course, where Burroughs heard his story and commits, yes, I will give you loads of wing-wangs to create a new machine, and we will try and help to get you back. Exactly what Bradbury's motivation is for this, I don't know. Obviously, he enjoyed the story. Frankly, if it was me, I'd be listening to this story thinking, bit crap this. I'll buy him a pint for telling me it, but I'm not going to give up any of my fortune for this rubbish.
Yeah.
Well, that was City of Beast, Andy.
It was.
Wasn't City of Beast, it was City of the Beast.
Yeah, City of the Beast. And there was only one beast, and it wasn't much of a city, and it was right at the very end.
Yeah, it's not really, I think Warriors of Mars is probably a better title. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, My takeaway from that is that if you go to Mars, you end up with a gym membership and some chicks, and then a dissatisfying ending by being spun back through space. But I don't know. It's when I first read it, I obviously enjoyed it. And I obviously enjoyed it enough to then continue reading all the Michael Moorcock books that I really did and still do enjoy.
Yeah.
So something captured me at that point. But I think if I'd have read Edgar Rice Burroughs before I'd read this, I wouldn't have touched that with the barge pole. Which is it's sad, really, but there you go.
Yeah, I think this is at a time when Mike's growing into himself in his 60s form. He's flexing his muscles as he goes.
Oh, yeah.
Doing an Edgar Rice Burroughs pastiche maybe is an obvious one, given his obvious love of the source material. He talks about in his introduction. He was absolutely obsessed with Edgar Rice Burroughs when he was a teenager. And when he's writing these, he's barely out of his teens. You know?
Yeah.
But even by 60s standards, this is beyond slight. It's flimsy as hell. It's full of filler. And even for a one-shit book, it's quite hard work.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, like I said earlier, you know, in 61 he wrote Dreaming City, and that is head and shoulders above this.
Yeah. His protagonist, Kane, is one of the worst examples of early Mike heroes. It's hopelessly shallow.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. It's a pastiche, sure, but I'm not sure it holds a great deal of value even as a curiosity. I mean, I think if you're a Moorcock completist, you know, it's there to be read.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one of those things that you might read just to see what his journey was like at the time. You know, but I know people who I've recommended Moorcock to them, and they've picked up some Moorcock. I've got one friend who said, "Well, I tried some Moorcock. I read The Golden Barge. It was shite."
Oh, okay.
I was like, "Oh,
it's a difficult read."
Yeah, you know, it's like when you've got a writer with the sheer breadth of his output.
Yeah,
I suppose there's always a chance someone could roll the dice, and that's the one they find on the shelf and read it, and it's not to their tastes. It's set. The Golden Badge, we still haven't covered it, but it's certainly not one I would recommend as a first Moorcock book. You know.
No,
but
no.
Again, the Golden Badge, he was encouraged to publish that, and he didn't really want to. He just published it because I think it was Savoy, our New English Library, encouraged him to publish it just to get another book out.
It was Savoy, wasn't it? Yeah.
All right. I will do then. Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, it's a difficult choice because if you've got to pay the bills, and obviously, you know, this is what he does for a living. So
Absolutely.
you have to put some stuff out there. So what are you going to do?
And yeah, I mean, I think the Golden Badge was published around about the time after his divorce as well. You know, pre going off to the USA to try and make money working on films and meeting Linda. You know, he was desperate for cash. He needed the cash.
Yeah.
So I mean, I suppose if someone says to you, "Have you got anything else you wrote when you were 17 that we could stick an axe cover on and belt out there?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh well, I could do with a few bob." So yeah, as it happens, I do. Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult when, you know, people say to you, you know, who do you like reading? I like reading Michael Moorcock, and, you know, and then they go away and they pick up a Moorcock book because. Especially if you go on about them being sort of like fancy books, sword and sorcery books, and all this sort of stuff with great descriptions and things like that. And I mean, they could go and pick up anything. And I mean, I love the Pirate books, but if somebody picked up Byzantium Endures as a first Moorcock book, fucking hell, that's, you know what I mean? I love that book. I think it's brilliant because I like the whole Russian Revolution period and all that sort of stuff. But no way are they going to think he's a fantasy author.
No, it's pretty dense, isn't it?
It's an alternative history of the Russian Revolution, isn't it? Like, you know. So yeah, you have to pick your poison when you come to Moorcock, I think, as a first read.
Yeah. But you know what? I've enjoyed talking about it probably more than I enjoyed reading it. So
yeah,
there is that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There is that. It gave us this opportunity, didn't it? And I mean, at some point I probably will read, because the last quarter of this book is the best bit. I will go on and reread the second one at some point. Whether we'll do a podcast on it, I don't know. But I will go on and read it just to check it out and see if it's any better.
That was probably day 2 of his writing binge, and he'd warmed up by then.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But you know, in the meantime, thanks as ever, Andy, for taking time to drop by Derry and Tom's and yak about another book, and we'll think of something for next time.
Let's do that. See you later.
Many thanks to Andy for dropping by Derry and Tom's once again to look at some 60s moorcock. You can pick up Andy's books at the usual stockists and check into them in more detail on andydarbybooks.com. That's Darby with an A. If you sign up there, you can get a free copy of his novella, The Stone Beneath. If you go to andydarby.substack.com, you can also get up to speed on his ongoing series, The Crow Feeder, and we did a previous podcast with him where you can hear him talk to me and Phil about his last novel, The Blade in the Angel's Shadow. We might get back to Mike's Mars trilogy at some point in the future, but first we have a slate of other moorcock goodies to come, and very soon, the 2025 birthday special. So watch out for that and plenty more moorcock in the remainder of 2025 and into the new year, the brave new world of 2026. But in the meantime, thanks as ever to our patrons. First, those without tier, Anthony Piconti, Tim Cardos, Dave Dempster, and Sebastian Weetabix. Our chaos engineers, Ed von Stort, Andrew Clark, Andrew Cicluna, Andrew Spong, Andrew Van Ness, Anthony Porter, Benjamin Fletcher, Ben Hagar, Brandon Mays, Dan Charnley, Dave F., Dave Griffiths, Dave Voxman, Gabriel Laycock, Harvey Faulkner-Aston, Jim Kirkland, Jim Jupp, John W. Lays, Jules Lawrence, Mal Pertwee, Matt Saltz, Michael Hopwood, Nick Hopkinson, Paul McRandall, PJ Cooper, Rex Ossius Nusquam, Scott Butler, Simon Perrins, and Steve Braun. And of course, thanks to our crafty juggered heroes, Adrian Tchaikovsky, Alexander Harris, Chris Sharp, Christian Hundell, James Connell, Graham Holden, Kevin Williams, Liam Turner, Loz, Mark Buckley, Mark Hewlett, Mark Taylor, Matthew Broom, Murray Palmer, Urfa Ziv, Sean Twist, Toby White, and Taylor Lavery. An eternal thanks to our patron demons, Action Edmonds, Alistair Davison, Andy Darby, Brian Henderson, David Lee, Derek Clunan, Fred Quiche, Gareth Wilson, Glenn Sawyer, Greg Faulkner, Gwen Barlow, Ian Stead, Janie Stim, Jason Vogel, Joachim Sund, Joe Monty, Johan Hjapper, Jonathan Sharp, Lee Gary, Liam Jones, Marius Latauskas, Mark Hebden, Miles Reed-Labato, Neil Burton, Paul Hillary, Randall Gatlin, Steve Round, Tom Murphy, Tone Malazzo, the OG patron Norman Beresford, and last but never least, Robert McMillan. Okay, enough from me. You can follow us on Instagram or Blue Sky with the handle @BreakfastRuins. You can email us at breakfastruins@outlook.com. The webpage is breakfastintheruins.com. BITR Breakfast in the Ruins Radio is live on Radio Garden or via the web player at breakfastintheruinsradio.blogspot.com. We have our Patreon page too, of course, and there are a few extra odds and sods on there. But until next time, wherever you are in the world, take care, stay safe, and we will meet again soon on the Moonbeam Roads.